So welcome everybody to our annual meeting. I'm sorry we can't enjoy the slideshow right now as we usually do as we're gathering. Susan Forsberg has done a fantastic job once again of capturing the highlights of the year that's gone by, and that is available on the website. I think maybe even on the annual meeting page for you to enjoy at your leisure. So I'm going to call on the Reverend Canon Brooks Mason, Director of Liturgy, to begin us with a prayer.
Thank you. Let us pray. Almighty God, you sent your Son, Jesus Christ, to reconcile the world to yourself. We praise and bless you for this cathedral family, those whom you have sent in the power of the Spirit to minister and preach your word to all. We give thanks to you, O Lord, for all your servants and witnesses of time past. We remember before you with grateful hearts those who generously gave of their resources for what we now enjoy. We thank you for this community of love gathered together into one by our prayers and labors, and that in every place and all we do, may we, your servants, perceive what is right and pursue it. For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen.
Thank you, Brooks. So it's my joy to call to order this annual parish meeting of St. Paul's Cathedral. I think I've been told there are 7 people in the Great Hall to add to the number of Zoom tiles. So I call on, 8, okay. Thank you, Richard. I call on our clerk, Joyce Vogel, who I hope is with us, to declare a quorum.
Yes, I'm here and I declare a quorum.
6 tiles, which is probably translates 69 or 70 individuals, plus the 7 in the Great Hall.
Correct.
So I hope you can all see the agenda. It's on. There's a link in the chat if you missed it, and I'll call for a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
We're not on visual.
Don't forget to unmute if you want to make a motion.
So moved. Second.
Seconded. Any objections? Since there's so many of you, which is wonderful on the screen, I can't see everybody. So if there is an objection, please make it known, or a change to the agenda that you want to ask for. And hearing none, I'm going to declare the agenda approved. The annual report packet is on the website on the annual meeting page, and perhaps Richard would be kind enough to post that link on the chat. We have the minutes of last year's annual meeting in there. I hope some of you have had a chance to look at them. Our custom is to have a preliminary review of the minutes at the first chapter meeting following the annual meeting, while everybody remembers what happened. So we did that at the February chapter meeting, and the minutes that are posted are preliminarily approved and or corrected by chapter last year. So do I hear a motion to accept or to approve the minutes of last year's annual meeting?
So moved. It's Jen.
Second.
And if you want to object, please make it known. Okay, hearing none, we will regard them as approved. Just a reminder to those of you who've just arrived, please mute your tile if you haven't already. It's very helpful. And if you wouldn't mind turning off your video, it helps with transmission. Zoom gets a little bit hung up when there's too many people. Much as I love your face. And I'm going to call on our treasurer, Betsy Monsell, to become visible and audible and give us the financial report.
All right, I'm here. And I think Richard is going to post our financial results for 2021. We'll give him a minute. But I will say that we wound up the year in very good financial position in spite of being in the second year of the pandemic. And so I am very grateful. This first slide shows our 2021 actual versus budget results. And we were right on track with our pledge plate and other offerings for the year, just slightly under by about $6,000, which I think is remarkable. I'm so grateful to everyone who continued their pledges. We knew that our plate income would be a little bit lower for the year because we didn't have in-person services. So we adjusted our budget last year for that. But all of our other giving held up nicely. We were right on track with transfers from the LLC and from our endowment funds. And transfers from special funds looks a little lower than budgeted by about $31,000 for the year. But that is really a good thing. It means that we didn't use as much special funds as we had planned. And special funds are designated giving for certain things. And because we didn't need to use as much as planned, we're able to use that in this coming year, 2022 operating budget. So that actually was a good thing. Our total expenses for the year came in actually under budget. We budgeted for almost $1.6 million. We came in at a little over $1.5 million for savings of $68,000. And that was primarily because we had an open associate clergy position for several months during the year when Jeff left and before Richard got here. Also, lay compensation was under budget because we didn't have in-person worship services. And so we didn't need as many of our section leaders for music, nor did we need nursery workers. So that came in under budget. Some of our areas were a little over budget. Administration and buildings and grounds were a little over budget, primarily because in administration, we had people working from home. And so we had to provide laptop computers for them and IT support for them. And so that came in over budget, but it was for a good cause and enabled us to keep doing live streaming during the entire year. So our bottom line is our net operating income. We had a small profit of $24,000 versus a break-even budget of $479 planned. And so we came in with a small profit, as we did in 2020, which is really great for the church. It enables us to have a small surplus to rely on. All right, turning to the next slide, which is special funds. Take a quick look at that. Special funds are contributions that people have given for special designated things. So just to highlight a few, about 15 or so line items down from the top is Friends of Cathedral Music. That's always a very popular offering. And we wound up with almost $30,000 or a little over $30,000 in Friends of Cathedral Music at the end of the year, which is great, can be used toward our music program this year. Some of the other things, outreach has significant money for showers of blessings and other things for the coming years. And we go down to the bottom, very bottom of the special funds listing. Can you scroll
One
down?
more.
Yep, you got it. I will say all of this will be in your packet. And so on the website in the annual report, so you can look at it at your leisure. Women Together has some funds at the end of the year, about $1,700. And then we had some special projects during the year. We replaced the pews with chairs. We had a special gift for that. You can see that down toward the bottom, replacing pews with chairs. We have new building furniture and fixtures at about $250,000, which has been funded gratefully by the LLC. And we have put in an order for all of that new building furniture. And then also Chancel redesign has been funded by a generous donor, and we have some work done on that already, and we have money to complete that project this year. So a number of things going on, which we are very grateful for. Turning to the final slide, we'll talk about the budget for 2022, which was just approved by chapter earlier this month. Here's our 2022 budget. Our budget this year is about $150,000 more than our budget in 2021. And we were anticipating when we put this together that we would be returning to full operations. We may be a bit delayed in that due to this resurgence. We'll just have to see how it goes. But our budget in total is $1.7 million of operating income and $1.7 million of operating expenses for a break-even bottom line of $582. And we're very hopeful that we will achieve that. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Betsy. Since chapter already approved the finances, there is no requirement for the annual meeting to approve them as well. That's our delegated authority polity of the Episcopal Church. Betsy, is there anything you want to say about our investments?
Yes, and we have a slide for that. Richard's going to put that up.
Apologies.
Madly
Thank you,
multitasking here.
I know, he's awesome. I will say we have as well as a great finance committee, we have a wonderful endowment committee, and that is chaired by Elizabeth Carey. And we had a really good year with our endowment funds.
One moment.
Yep, there we go. All right, if you can scroll down a bit for that first chart. There we go. Okay, this shows the progress of our endowment funds over the last 10 years. And you can see that in the last 10 years, we have more than doubled our endowment funds. And that is thanks to many people in the congregation who have either donated funds to support our endowment funds or have left funds to us in their wills and estate plans. And so we're very grateful for that. We have $4.4 million in our endowment funds over at the end of 2021, which is an over 10% increase for 1 year, which is fantastic. And then Richard, if you can scroll down a little bit more, here we go. This shows the activity during the year. We began the year with $4 million in the funds. We had contributions of $39,781, and that is from bequests, gifts, and sales of columbarium niches. And all of that is detailed a little bit below in the notes, and you can read those at your leisure. We had income during the year of $557,000, which was mainly capital appreciation. The stock market was very strong in 2021. And so we had great capital appreciation. We made a normal distribution from the funds to the cathedral to support the operating budget and also other special items during the year of $124,000. We had held back, we can distribute up to 5% a year, but we held back last year and only distributed 4.4% because the stock market return had been a bit lower the year before, and we wanted to be cautious and not dip into capital. We also made a distribution during the year of $50,000, which is a loan to fund a potential capital campaign, and that was authorized by chapter in 2021. And we paid $20,000 of management fees. So our ending balance at the end of the year was $4.4 million. I want to tell you that of that, a little over $500,000 is for the benefit of Vita Hoven funds. And they are now a separate 501c3, but they have asked us to continue our oversight of those funds for that nonprofit. So we include those in our endowment funds. Historically, they were part of the cathedral, now they're on their own, but we still continue to oversee their funds for them. So that is the endowment report for the year. Thank you.
Much, Betsy. You are an amazing treasurer. We are so blessed to have you.
Thank you.
And I want to ask
My
anybody,
pleasure.
invite anyone who has questions about any of the finances before we let Betsy disappear from the screen. Please unmute and feel free to ask questions or type them in the chat. And I need to apologize because we are not sure where the annual report was put on the website. It came in up against the wire on Friday night by email, and it may be that it, Richard?
I haven't put it in now.
You put it in.
It's in there. It's on the link, Penny. You put it in chat.
I literally
Awesome.
just put it in, so
Oh,
I apologize
works.
for the lateness of it, but it is in the chat now. It's also just for anybody who wants to find it for whatever reason you can't get into the chat. It is on the annual meeting website. It just says click here for the full 2021 reports. So it should be relatively easy to find there if you can't find it in the chat for some reason.
Thank you very much. Wow, we are blessed. So now, Richard, it's your turn to say something about stewardship. And I'll keep letting people in if necessary.
Thank you. I just want to just very briefly say two things. One, this really is a stupendous leadership team as far as the stewardship committee goes. Jairus deserves a huge amount of credit, but so does that entire team. I said this in my report, but it bears repeating. The first thing we ever talked about was pastoral care. So for a new priest to come into this community and have a stewardship meeting address not just finances, but also pastoral care really speaks to the spirit of this place and this community. And that is an awesome, awesome thing. The only other thing I want to do is give an update on the pledge campaign and make it up to the minute. So I will do that in just a moment here. And of course, what's happened since I last logged into Realm is they've updated it. And so they've shifted things around. So instead of me trying to bring up the up to the minute report, what I can say is that we are within less than 1% of our overall goal for 2022 pledging. Last I had checked on Friday, it was a little over $7,500 short, which is amazing, absolutely amazing considering everything that's gone on. And that's all I have to say is how amazing you all are as a community, and it is a joy to be here with you.
Thank you, Richard. It's a joy to have you with us. Very successful stewardship campaign. Jairus, you're amazing leading that. I will just mention that we did lose a major donor recently. So there is still room for some more pledges or some increased pledges if you feel so moved to help us fill that gap. But it really, to be within 1% by this point is terrific. All right, I'm going to ask Ken Tranbarger, President of Nutmeg and Olive, to give us a quick update on the Cathedral Campus redevelopment plan.
Okay, I'll start with telling you all I'm very happy. This is it, my 19th and, well, I guess it's my 19th annual report. We started back in 2003 doing this, and there's still 3 of us that were involved at that time that are still involved. Kendall Squires, now in North Carolina, was the chancellor of the cathedral at that point and on the LLC. Tom Delaney, our project manager, was with us then and still is ever present and competently helpful all the time. And I was there, of course. And as I said, this is my 19th trip to this podium. Dean Penny, Mark Lester, Jim Greer, and the Cathedral Treasurer, Betsy Monsell, are also members of the LLC. And we've got a couple of contract people, Aaron Sacco Panetta and Kathleen Burgess, provide us administrative and financial support. And for the last 2 years, we've had Bob Knight as our chapter rep, and he's been very helpful and a pleasure to have him join us. What we did during 2021 was reallocate our investments to more fully support our distributions to the cathedral. And that was over $500,000 last year with the funds that we gave for the furniture and fixtures and our normal distribution. We've ordered all the furniture and fixtures, and we've got the AV equipment on order as well. We're told by the vendors that we don't have any supply chain issues that we know of right now, so it's on its way. We've obtained 2 judicial victories from the legal action that had been brought against the cathedral, the LLC, and Gray Star for building a building that was too high. And that now has been appealed, and the result there was very favorable to us. And because we own the space, the new space, we've established a lease with the cathedral that will govern how we relate to each other and the space as we go forward. The only thing we have left to do is move in, and that should be scheduled in mid to late March, and there'll be a dedication and a celebration, and you'll be invited. You can count on that. We'll ask you to come and take a look at this. We've got just over $9 million in our cash and investments. That's up slightly from 2020, even though, as I said, we had sent $550,000 to the cathedral. So as Betsy said, with the church's investments, our investments also went up quite a bit, except we moved it over to, we moved all that growth over to the cathedral. Dean Penny had suggested back when we were starting this that we plant a grove of trees to replace the ones that were taken out. Well, with all the stuff going on in Balboa Park, I think I've got a schedule now that should meet our move-in date and actually beat it a little bit. And we'll see some trees over next to the Bridge Club on, I think it's at, anyway, it's on Park Boulevard. So I want to thank everybody. I hope my enthusiasm comes through, because I am really pleased to be making this presentation. And with God's grace, your continued support, our continued perseverance, we're going to make this work, and it's going to be very well done. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ken. And congratulations, seeing this through right from the start. You're the last man standing of the original crew, along with Tom, of course. And it must be very satisfying. It's so exciting for us to be on the verge of this move in. Let me, before I get to my next bit, let me invite questions or comments about, well, the stewardship report and or the LLC. I'm watching the chat. I'm glad to see people were paying attention to my sermon. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or comments unless I'm missing something. It is all good. And Ken has always been cheerful with all the backs and forwards and the moments when things were rocky. It's all gone very well, and he's been a great cheerleader and leader for us all. So now I get to do something joyful, and that is to offer thanks for some of the key leaders in our community. I did do this in my written report, which is now available on the website. Oh, I see 2 of me now. That's interesting. But it's important enough that I should do it again. So if this were a live meeting, I would call for an enthusiastic round of applause for each leader. But unfortunately, second year in a row, that isn't possible. But next year, God willing, I'll be able to, we'll meet in person, we'll be able to cheer and celebrate. But for now, I want to thank the 4 chapter members who are completing their 3-year terms: Bob Knight, Margaret Hernandez, Jairus Kleinert, and Donna Perdue. And I hope they are all present. But yeah, you have all been committed and faithful and hardworking and inspired leaders of our congregation through what turned out to be a very challenging time. And I know none of you were expecting it to be anything like it turned out to be during your term. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Secondly, I want to thank our staff. I hope you all know how blessed we are at St. Paul's. We have a group of smart and motivated and very team-oriented people on our payroll, and we could not do what we do without them. And I give thanks for each of my colleagues every day. They make it a joy to be a part of this cathedral community. Kathleen Burgess, Richard Hogue, Brooks Mason, Martin Green, Bob Osley, Judy McDonald, Molly Green, Gabriel Aregi, Maya Little Sanya, Chuck Giot, and Erin Sacco Pineda. Goodness, I hope I didn't miss anybody. Thank you for all you do for our cathedral family. So did any of us imagine a year ago that we would still be in a pandemic mode today? And yet, here we are. I'm trying to multitask here myself. I'm not as good at it as Richard is. I hope you will spend a few minutes at some point reading the annual report booklet. My report focuses on the year gone by, so I'm not going to say much about 2021 because I wrote that down. But let's look instead to the future and some of the bright possibilities that lie ahead of us. As we begin this year, we are on, as you heard, solid financial footing, thanks to all of you. And thanks also to the financial markets that were kind to our invested funds last year. We're also on solid spiritual footing, with liturgies that have adapted to the realities of the pandemic, but still maintained their beauty and integrity, and a number of small groups that root us in prayer and spiritual growth, including the daily office groups, centered prayer group, education for ministry, and Stephen ministers. And you heard me say that in my sermon as well. We have a capable and diverse chapter, and we have a strong staff team, and the major construction project next door is in its final stages. And I give thanks for all of these strengths, especially in the face of all the disappointments and adjustments of the last 2 years. I will say on a personal note that one of the greatest disappointments for me has been the decision to suspend our weekly Eucharist in Spanish. But I remain hopeful that in the year ahead, God will lead us to a new vision for our ministry with our Latino neighbors. All the gurus tell us that churches can no longer depend on member pledges alone if they are to stay viable. We've seen a steady drop over the last decade in the number of households pledging, although those who do pledge more, for which I am very grateful. The fact remains that we have to find creative ways to support St. Paul's ministry into the future. And I believe that the most important thing we can do now is to equip ourselves and our campus for broader ministry with the community around us. So I'm going to run through some of the ways that St. Paul's is preparing for effective and sustainable ministry in the post-pandemic era. We are remodeling the chancel for accessibility and flexibility and making the entire nave of the church more useful to the community. As you know, the chancel project has been in the planning for well over a year. Since we began work on the design, costs have sharply increased, and we have all become familiar with that supply chain issue. It seems to crop up everywhere. When we reviewed the project scope a few months ago, it was clear that doing the minimum of what was needed would exceed the very generous financial gift that we already had by a significant amount. And I'm happy to report that another generous parishioner came forward with the money to cover the gap, and we're now in a position to start construction. First, there is a period of procurement, which is several weeks, especially in these supply chain days, and then actual construction. The first thing you're going to notice, though, is when the organ console is moved to the nave floor. Did you know that our organ console is movable? It's attached to a sort of umbilical cord of electrical cable and can be moved around. While some items, such as the smart lighting that we need, are caught up in that supply chain mess, I'm hopeful that we might complete the major part of the project by Easter. Let's pray for that. But we will make sure that the church is always usable throughout the project. And we are already fielding inquiries from musical organizations about using that improved space. Second, our Revenue Research Task Force is completing our marketing package to attract renters for our various gathering spaces, including the new space, the new building. We'll be able to provide good quotes on a consistent basis and hopefully attract many community members to our campus. Next, we're working with architects on a master plan that will open up the campus in new ways for outreach and music and community gatherings, incorporating the current plans that you may remember that are for the music and outreach centers into an overall plan that makes the whole campus more accessible and safer, eliminating many dark corners and smoothing out the different levels. I am really excited about this vision, and I'm going to give you a quick orientation, I hope. Let's see if I can do this. Just the general sense of the plans. I know that's a bit, so this is to give you a sense of where we hope to make improvements. And these plans, they're still at an early stage, but you can see the grand hall, as the architects called it, the great hall level. That's where some of our folks are right now. There's going to be the passage. Number 6 is a large high ceilinged space, and I'm going to show you a fly through of that in a moment. And then number 4 is kitchen upgrades, just a few upgrades. Then over here, the courtyard level, the music center underneath the Great Hall, where the offices are currently camping out. Number 2, oh, that's in the next slide. Number 6 again is the passage. That's multi-floor. And then number 3 is where the clergy, what we've called the clergy parking lot, and you see that there's this amphitheater kind of idea with a slope down into the undercroft underneath the chapel. And then going to the next, hello, let's see, next slide, there we are. So now we have the 3rd floor upstairs, and we have a little bit of the passage. It's a staircase, and number 5 is the a 3rd floor restroom, which we have desperately needed for a long time, between the godly playroom and the fireside room. And then going to the other extreme, underneath the chapel in the basement area, number 2 here is will be the outreach center. So that's the plan, we hope. And there'll be many more details. Let me just say a few more words about those improvements. The music center, as I said, will be underneath the Great Hall. The original use of that space was as the parish hall. It was one enormous open space. So we know that all the interior walls can be removed fairly easily, and we can bring into one space all the functionality of our music ministry, the rehearsal space, the music storage, the vestments, and the offices, where they're on 4 different levels right now throughout the campus, and not all are accessible or indeed particularly safe when we think about our children's choirs. The outreach center, let's see, I hope I'm still, yeah, there we are. The outreach center will be located, as I said, under the chapel in the undercroft. It'll have permanent shower and laundry facilities. There'll be rooms where people can gather and eat and sleep. There'll be lots of storage for the items that we give away at Showers of Blessings, and hopefully a space where a case manager might meet with clients. And we hope we can partner with the Interfaith Shelter Network, with Episcopal Community Services, and we can use this space not only for Showers of Blessings, but for our seasonal shelter and for perhaps mission trips from other parts of the country. And I'm sure there are other possibilities that our creative minds will come up with. So now I want to show you, if I can get this to work, a fly through of an early iteration, I should say, of the overall design, the master plan design. I do want you to understand there have already been changes to this, and there will be many more before we get to the functionality that we need, but it's really quite extraordinary. So let's see if I can get this to work. How I get it to move. Oh, there we are. So it's just a minute long. So coming in from 5th Avenue into the Queen's Courtyard, the existing red doors and 2 other new openings into the passage, big space for gathering indoor, outdoor with ramps and steps. Up to the Great Hall on the left, the elevator is easy to find, and out to the 6th Avenue Courtyard, which will have a labyrinth built into it. Looking out at Balboa Park, and then turning around to the south, coming around, that's the elevator building you can see there on the left. And then we go down a ramp by the sacristy door and out to what used to be called the clergy parking lot. And this idea for an amphitheater, a gathering space outdoors with a ramp again going around the outside. And because it's dug out, it allows us to access the chapel undercroft without having to go down any stairs, and to have natural light in that area. It's an extraordinary design and very exciting. And by the way, we could put a big screen on the wall facing the amphitheater and have movie nights or display whatever we want to folks in Balboa Park and on 6th Avenue. So that's just a taste of the dream. Pat Crater, would you mind? There we go. Thank you. So to forestall questions, we do not as yet have any kind of cost estimate for either of the 2 centers, outreach and music, or for the master plan construction. So far, those who've been involved in the conversations with the architects have been executive staff and ministry leaders of music and outreach and the wardens. Now, I'm going to invite you, if you have questions, please unmute. I'll see if I can answer them.
Penny, I think I saw a question about a library in the chat section.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm just looking through the chat myself. I see a library question mark. There will be a library area in the new office space, contiguous to where Judy will be welcoming people into the office space on the 2nd floor of the new building.
Am I on?
Yes, go ahead,
Oh,
Robert.
hi. Yeah, Robert here. I was wondering, is there a similar kind of a plan for the chancel, what the chancel is going to look like?
Oh my goodness, I should have included that. I'm sorry. Yes, there is, but I don't have it to hand. But
Okay.
I'll be happy. We'll have a forum devoted entirely to the chancel very soon. But I'll try and describe it. The chancel right now, as you know, is fairly small and narrow. It stops at really the end of the organ console. We're planning to expand it out like an apron stage, so that there'll be more square footage, going from 900 to 1,300 square feet of our, if you like, stage space. And a ramp will come up around the back of the organ that will go both to the chapel and to the chancel. And then everything will be on one level rather than having all those steps that trip us up.
Yeah, I encountered those today again. Where's the organ console? Is it going to stay where it is, or will it? You mentioned something about its umbilical cord. Is it going to move somewhere?
During construction, it's going to move to the nave floor so that it's out of danger, because the floor, chancel floor, is changing. But after construction, it will be put back on the chancel, and because there'll be fewer steps, it'll be more mobile than ever. And I think once or twice we've put it in the center of the chancel for an organ recital. We'll be able to do that kind of thing more easily. The choir stalls, everything will be movable by one person at a time, rather than being tremendously heavy as they are now.
Yeah, that's really good, because at one point we were able to move the console into the center of the chancel for concerts and what have you, and that hasn't been possible for a long time. Okay, well, I look forward to seeing the plan. Thank you for the answer. You want this back? Okay.
I'm looking at, there will be phases, but we haven't got as far as creating those phases of construction. There's a logic though that may dictate the phases. Once the staff moves out of the temporary offices, that opens up that space under the Great Hall where we could work on the music center. Once we move the music center in there and the choir vesting rooms come out of the chapel undercroft, we can do something with the chapel undercroft for the outreach center. So there are phases that will essentially happen just because of the way we're moving things around. Acolytes and altar crew, that's been really important for us to find the right space and separate vesting for altar crew. And yes, Wanda, that's something we're focusing on. The choir needs their space, the altar crew need their space, and the clergy need somewhere to vest as well. And Sherry says it's like dominoes, but we're not knocking things over as such. So I think it's a bit like a crossword puzzle. Yes,
Penny?
the bridge piece. Yes, go ahead, Darian.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your very thoughtful and in-depth presentation. I feel the excitement and your passion for this whole project. I appreciate what you've done. Question, if you could address parking, not just available parking, not just for staff, but for people that would be coming to the church to attend services or different programs.
Thank you. We have 70 parking spaces at our disposal underneath the new building. So that's compared to, I think it was 34 in the old parking lot. We expect to need about a dozen for staff on a regular basis. The rest of the spaces will be available to the Cathedral congregation whenever needed. And we're hoping to monetize them when the congregation doesn't need them and to rent out spaces. And that actually is a good segue to the big question, which is how are we going to pay for all this? That must be on your minds. And I see two major pieces. Besides the monetizing the parking spaces will help our ongoing operating expenses. But when we're looking at these improvements, these are capital improvements. They're one-time big investments in the future. And so there are two pieces that I see. One is a capital campaign, and the other is a search for appropriate grants. Last year, you'll remember that we did the first listening phase of a capital campaign, and we intend to restart that this year. The idea is that it will fund the majority of the capital improvements included in this master plan. And we're in the process of restarting the campaign to move forward with the next phase of that, which is a feasibility study. This is being led by a chapter member, Rocky Ewell, and the Reverend Richard Hogue. We put it on hiatus until we had Richard in place and until we had the annual pledge campaign behind us. And I do want to remind you, there's a big difference between our annual pledge campaign and a capital campaign. You'll hear a lot more about this, but I'll just say briefly, the pledge campaign pays for our ongoing operating expenses, staff salaries, utilities, our commitment to the diocese, and so forth. Typically, each of us pays our pledge out of our own ongoing income. So for example, I make a payment each month on my pledge as my paychecks come in. I would not be able to pay my whole pledge in one lump sum. The capital campaign, on the other hand, focuses more on asking for a single large gift. Now that might come out of my savings or out of my retirement plan. It might be paid in a few installments. It involves elements or includes elements of estate planning. Your financial advisor can guide you for the best possible tax advantages for a capital gift. And I hope you will talk to your financial advisors about this. The objective is to give our ability for ministry a one-time major bump. So it lifts us to a new level of service for the community. Typically, people give to capital campaigns. They're excited by the vision of what could be. And I hope you catch this excitement and by the prospect of making a visible and lasting difference in the community that we all love. A difference that will go far beyond our own time here. So that's the capital campaign. The other part I mentioned was grants, and I've reactivated the grants committee that we started 4 or 5 years ago. This is a small group of parishioners who are expert grant writers. We are so blessed with talents in this congregation. And this committee is focusing on finding sources of grants, not only in the Episcopal Church, but also in the broader world of philanthropy. There's a lot of interest in the religious philanthropic arena in helping churches to equip themselves for a future in which fewer people attend or pledge to religious organizations. So the more we do looking out to the community, the more compelling our vision will be to those granting organizations. And if you have something to offer and some expertise or knowledge you'd like to offer for either the capital campaign or the grants process, please let me know and I'll put you in touch, or reach out directly to Richard or to Kathleen Burgess, who heads up the grants committee. Now, outreach is the lifeblood of any faith community. In order to stay healthy, we have to look outward to the needs of God's world, not just to attract grants, but because that's what we should do. We are gradually moving back towards a full offering of the showers of blessings. And it makes me very happy to say that. The master plan calls for permanent showers to be installed. Now, this won't happen for a while, but we should be able to resume renting the diocese's shower trailer once the major construction is over and we regain use of that old clergy parking lot. During the lockdown, we had conversations with several community partners about the most effective way for us to serve our unsheltered neighbors. Showers address, of course, only a symptom of homelessness. They don't offer a solution. But as we attract volunteers, ministers who are passionate about this issue, I see the possibility of building a group that will encourage our community leaders to find systemic solutions and transform our community. More about outreach in a moment. As the pandemic recedes, we will start to rebuild our choir program, recruiting and training a new generation of children to love our musical traditions. And I see this as our key youth ministry. Singing in choirs is known to promote intelligence and learning abilities, as well as being good for the soul and bringing people from diverse communities together. So that's another piece of our preparation for the future. And while we do all of this, we continue to love Christ and serve others and welcome all, shining on this Banker's Hill as a beacon of God's love and light in a world that desperately needs both of those. And before I hand over to Dean's Warden Donna Perdue to give us the election results, are there any questions? Seeing none, I am going to slip out of sight for a moment and let Donna give us the good news.
Thank you, Penny, and thank you, everyone. You know, this year we had a slate of 7 excellent candidates who were willing to stand for election to chapter. With our mail-in elections, we received 152 ballots cast, and the results are the following 4 in alphabetical order were elected to a 3-year term on chapter. Tanya Chavez, Stacy Clayman, Russ Okahara, Jim Wright. Thank you to everyone who stood. Thank you to everyone who voted. And we have an excellent, excellent slate of new chapter members. Thank you all.
To all of our candidates. It was a remarkable slate and a very close election. So we are definitely going to put those people to work, whether or not they're in they're serving on chapter this year. It's my pleasure to announce that Justin Lewis has accepted my invitation to serve as Dean's Warden this year. Yeah. And finally, we come to the Robinson Cross. The Robinson Cross is named for the Reverend Harold Robinson, first rector of St. Paul's, and it's given each year to one or more parishioners in recognition of outstanding and sustained ministry on behalf of St. Paul's or the wider church. This year, it goes to two people. One of those people is energetic and passionate about a key ministry of the cathedral. She picked up a ministry that was still in its infancy and grew it significantly, making a difference in the lives of people in our congregation and in the neighborhood around us. Even during the pandemic, she kept that ministry alive, keeping our eyes open to the need around us. And she never ceases to advocate for the ministry and for the people it benefits. The other person is one of those people behind the scenes who most of you might never see. But he has brought professional expertise to the church's ministry at a time when we most needed it. He's been a key leader in maintaining parish connections throughout the pandemic, with a ministry that seemed like a luxury when it began 5 years ago, but has proved to be a critical element in keeping this congregation alive and vital over the last 2 years. The ministries I'm speaking of course, are showers of blessings and the live streaming of our worship. And I'm delighted to present the Robinson Cross to Claudia Dixon and Mike Thornton. I'm sorry to say I had to use a pretext to get Claudia here, but it worked. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the annual meeting?
So moved.
Second.
In that case, the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. I declare this meeting adjourned. Chapter members, you're about to go to a breakout room.